Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, welcome to the show where we don't sing it, we bring it. Help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And look, guys, if you are sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest and greatest wrestling video game, stop immediately. Go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create a wrestler, sign contracts, get into storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all Facebook users, totally free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, you want your name in the shout-outs like my buddy John down in Texas, then make sure you pop over to patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast. Sign up today. Look, if you're a $15 a month contributor, you get to host a live show with me. $7.50 a month contributors, you can get entered into a drawing to do the same, co-host an episode of a live show with myself. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. If you've got questions, comments, something you would like for us to touch on in a future episode, give us a shout at the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line, 267-642-1160, and we will get to your comments, questions, or concerns in a future episode. This episode, we got all sorts of things coming up. Don't forget to check out our homepage, ProWrestling.com, for a preview of anything coming to the show. And that is where you can find my debut, Dr. Fro, going live into the wrestling ring for the first time in my life. The video is there, a 3WA, Worldwide Wrestling Alliance match that took place on March 4th. I was so thrilled to be able to be a part of that. I apologize, March 10th. And got to wrestle an incredible wrestler guy by the name of Slim Whiskey, who wrestles in southeastern Pennsylvania. The Worldwide Wrestling Alliance came to the school that I work at and just put on a fantastic show for the kids, 4 hours of action, and you can't get the same experience at a big company show. The kids got to get out there and meet all the wrestlers, get face-to-face, sign autographs, buy merchandise, all kinds of fun stuff. And for me, for anybody who's ever met me or talked to me at a show or whatnot, you know that I'm a diehard junkie wrestling fan. But in addition to that, I've always wanted to do that for a living. Of course, I was never blessed with the physical talents in my previous fields of endeavor to be able to do that, and this was an opportunity for me to check something off the bucket list, and I can't even begin to describe to you the feeling and the emotion that took place when I got the opportunity to step in the ring for the first time. To his credit, Slim Whiskey walking out to the ring, throwing out an open challenge to any chump in the back who was man enough to step up, and that man happened to be me. The reaction from the students that were in attendance when they had no idea that I was coming out was absolutely mind-blowing and incredibly emotional for me. So thank you to all those kids who showed up to that show and got to be a part of making my dreams come true, and I hope I got to give them a special moment as well. By the way, picking up a win. Now I am undefeated in a pro wrestling ring, defeating Slim Whiskey after a tornado bulldog off the top turnbuckle, which was very cool. So thank you to the Triple WA for making that a reality. Jumping into the wrestling news of the week, WWE Hall of Fame season is here, and one of the big questions I've been hearing is, why is Dave Batista, who was supposed to go into the Hall of Fame years ago, and COVID hit and things got delayed and we had the whole shutdown and video screens, he didn't want to do it in front of a bunch of video screens, and then last year was a little different. This year we thought this was going to be the year, and apparently again it will not be the year for Dave Batista. He cannot get a break in his scheduling of his filming, the movies that he's filming, and so he will not be the headliner yet again this year. One of these years, hopefully, we'll find a way to get that done. I did appreciate the fact that he was doing a interview with Pro Wrestling Insider, PWO Insider, talking about Triple H taking over the head of creative for WWE. He's very much in favor of what Triple H has done, and he's very pleased with how things have been going. And I think it was just such a nice shout out to what Triple H is doing, to hear him include that in his interview. But he clearly was very, very much looking forward to being a part of the Hall of Fame this year. He was trying everything he could to make that happen, and it simply didn't. So far this year's Hall of Fame class, the confirmed candidates or the confirmed talent would be Rey Mysterio as the headliner, which it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with his feud with Dominic going on. Clearly heading towards a match at WrestleMania. I think everybody's been seeing that coming since last summer. I think they've done a masterful job recently of really building even more interest than was already there for this match to take place. I don't know how you push the buttons of Rey Mysterio to make it happen unless it's one of those spontaneous things. Like he does his Hall of Fame induction. The next night when they come out to WrestleMania, they always introduce whoever it was who got inducted the night before and have him come out and have Dominic attack him there. maybe get him into the ring or do whatever needs to be done. Not sure how you do it, but I'm actually looking forward to the match at this point. I think Dominic is doing some of his best work he's done so far as a professional. And of course, seeing Rey Mysterio with a legend in the ring, getting his just due, going into the Hall of Fame. I mean, let's be honest. He was a no-brainer. That was a guarantee from the minute the Hall of Fame became a thing, is that people of his quality should be in there. If you're a listener of mine for the last several years that I've been doing this show, you know that there are people who've gone into the Hall of Fame that I am not a huge fan of, who I don't think is necessarily deserving. Rey Mysterio is quite the opposite. I think he has provided that underdog spark to so many storylines, whether it was him wrestling Kane, The Big Show, people like Randy Orton, Triple H, anybody, John Cena, CM Punk. You put him in the ring with anybody, top to bottom. Great Khali. He found a way to make every match interesting. He could work with any style, big, little, and all points in between, and he could do so many things. I think it is such a beautiful thing to see Rey Mysterio go into the Hall of Fame. Likewise, now I understand for WWE fans, people who have primarily only focused on WWE their entire fandom, it may not be as big a deal to them. But for somebody like me and other diehards like me who've been around for quite a while, when you were people who watched WCW or prior to that the NWA, specifically the NWA, you were very familiar with the Great Muta. It was announced on the bump by Ric Flair that the Great Muta will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame as well. And I'll be honest with you, for as much as people are in support of Rey Mysterio going to the Hall of Fame, I could not be more happy than I am for the Great Muta. And for people who aren't familiar with Muta's work, I encourage you, one, to go look it up. Look up Great Muta versus Sting for the NWA World Television Championship. Look up Starrcade 89 Future Shock, where there was a 4-person tournament in the show. It was a round robin with the Great Muta, Lex Luger, Sting, and Ric Flair. That night, Muta got to face all 3 of those stars, and every one of the matches was fantastic. Oddly enough, he was the lowest point. There's a point system in that pay-per-view. He got the least amount of points, but put on 3 incredible matches. And everything he has ever done has been fantastic. Recently retiring after the match with Shinsuke Nakamura, a match with Tetsuya Naito, teaming up with Sting and Darby Allin. He's done so much in his career, and it is a beautiful thing, especially for a guy who never really wrestled for WWE in any facet. For him to be inducted right after his retirement is absolutely fantastic. Such a pleasant thing to see WWE giving that honor to someone who wasn't one of their own. I always wanted to see him in there, even if it was just for one appearance or one match or one something, and it just never came to fruition. But his contributions to the business, he was New Japan Pro Wrestling and All Japan Pro Wrestling equivalent of Sting in the 90s. And I'm thrilled that he's getting to be included with all the other immortals that are in the Hall of Fame. Incredibly, incredibly worthy induction. He's wrestled for essentially everybody but WWE, the NWA, WCW, Impact Wrestling. He even made an appearance on AEW in the last year, which for some of the younger fans was like an introduction to who he was, and they really didn't get much of an introduction because it was a short appearance. But what an incredible talent. We don't have any tag teams being announced yet for this year's induction. I expect somebody to go in as a tag team. I'm going to say, just on a personal level, I truly believe that the Midnight Express are the number 1 most overdue team to go into the Hall of Fame. Beyond that, the British Bulldogs I would be okay with. There's a few others that I wouldn't mind seeing in there who I think are worthy. And I'm not trying to trash the Sheepherders / Bushwhackers. They deserve to be in there too. If you knew anything about their independent wrestling all over the territory days, they clearly belong in the Hall of Fame. I just think that the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express has been one of the greatest rivalries and longest running rivalries of all time. And the Rock and Roll Express going in a few years ago was wonderful. And I just think this is long overdue. And I really do believe that Jim Cornette should be included with the group going into the Hall of Fame, because let's be honest, the group does not click the same way without Jim Cornette. And when I say induct the Midnight Express, I'm talking about Bobby Eaton, Dennis Condrey, Stan Lane, and Jim Cornette. I am certainly not including Bombastic Bart and whatever the other name was for the guys from the 90s. I'm not including them at all. Bart Gunn and I forget who his partner was. It was part of the new Midnight Express. But the original members, and when Condrey went out and Stan Lane came in to replace him, I think they all deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. So I would love to see that. But one person that they always induct a diva, and it sounds like it is a breath away from being confirmed on television, that Stacy Keibler will be the female inducted this year. Again, it's strange for me when you put somebody in who was like never women's champion, never had like some historic run or any major defining program, but she definitely left her mark on the industry. And so I'm okay with her being in there. She clearly had some moments that were timeless. So I'm more accepting of her going in than some of the guys that have gone in historically. I almost think that if it weren't for the women's championship wins, I almost think she's as qualified as Beth Phoenix. Not taking anything away from Beth Phoenix, I think she absolutely deserves to be in there as well. Tori Wilson's another one who went in, who I actually thought Keibler did more than Tori Wilson did for the division. But we'll have to see. There's a lot of women left that just aren't in there yet who really deserve to be. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Rocket Robin would be one I wouldn't mind seeing in there. Jumping Bomb Angels, Judy Martin and Leilani Kai, who I believe went in. They were one of the side acts at one point in one of the inductions. But there's just so many women that deserve to be in there as well. And it's what makes this current crop of female talent so impressive is I don't think at any point in time in the history of wrestling have there been so many women who are Hall of Fame worthy. And quite frankly, right now, I would love to see Mickie James get inducted, even though she's still in Impact Wrestling. Talk about, shattering a forbidden door. Put her in right now. That's what I would do if I was WWE. But of course, I'm not in any kind of position of authority. That being said, other news for the day. Got to give kudos to Impact Wrestling. With their streaming service, they do some crazy things every once in a while. And WWE used to have this section on their site for the hidden gems, the shows that the matches and things you might not see anywhere else. Well, when Sami Zayn was still El Generico, he made a couple dark match appearances for Impact Wrestling, and two of them are now going to be available on Impact Wrestling's streaming service, Impact Plus, and they're matches against the Amazing Red, who, if you've never seen his matches, again, an incredible talent, phenomenal, somebody who's never really contributed in WWE, and TJ Perkins, who, again, a fantastic, lighter wrestler, cruiserweight style wrestler, formerly in WWE. It would be really great to have for everybody to check those matches out because, you get to see Sami Zayn before he was Sami Zayn, to see why WWE was interested in bringing him in the first place. I know a lot of people are familiar with his time in Ring of Honor, and that was fantastic as well. His feuds and then teaming with Kevin Steen, now Kevin Owens, were fantastic. The Briscoes, all kinds of matches. But yeah, definitely check those out on Impact Plus if you have that opportunity. Speaking of WrestleMania, apparently WWE is still pitching ideas to Stone Cold Steve Austin to try to get him involved. I know the word coming out last week was that there's a possibility he does an in-ring segment with LA Knight, but not a formal match, trying to make money come together. There was still conversation about possibly swerving everybody and getting rid of the Omos match and having him face Brock Lesnar. I guess that was the original plan to begin with, was Stone Cold and Brock Lesnar, but he turned that down for whatever reason. I really hope he's involved. I think last year proved that he can still go, and I think that's something that really needs to happen. WWE needs to make it a concerted effort to really bring something special to this WrestleMania, because they didn't bring in The Rock like so many people had anticipated. Somebody who may not be there, speaking of Brock Lesnar and people like that, Bobby Lashley, Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt, who sounded like he wanted to challenge the winner of the Bobby Lashley-Brock Lesnar match at the Elimination Chamber. He's been absent from television for a couple weeks now, and now it's almost like they've thrown cold water on the match between he and Lashley. And the word is there's some form of injury. Nobody has acknowledged the injury, but apparently there is one. He was held out of the Madison Square Garden show the other week. And that's something to keep an eye on, because that's one of the potentially the marquee matches at Mania. And if he's not able to go, what do you do with Bobby Lashley at this point? Do you somehow insert him into the Omos Brock Lesnar match? Do you put him against a completely different challenger? And if so, who is that other challenger that you would put him with? You can't really shift too much. I would have much rather had the Brock Lesnar and Gunther match that everybody talked about. I'd rather have Lashley, do. I would love to see the Wyatt match at some point, but I would have liked to have seen a good finish to the Lashley Lesnar feud. But at this point, we just have to hope that the Bray Wyatt's character and his physicality is able to go in time for Mania. Somebody who has not gone in quite some time, Divine Dudley, in the news this week. He had major back surgery beginning of 2022, told he was never going to wrestle again, but he was doing a an interview with Wrestle Binge, and he said, me and Bubba have talked about it. It's not, unheard of. I did have major back surgery, so I just took the x-rays today, and it's going to be sent to my doctor to see if everything's good, and I can actually take my MRI tomorrow to see if the fusions that took place and everything is still intact. So once I get the okay from that within the next maybe week or two, I'll be able to determine whether or not I'm going to get back in the ring. It looks very good. And I think there's some independent matches that people would love to see. I know Matt Cardona was teasing a match with the Dudleys with he and Kurt Hawkins, and how they would love to do that. I think that would be fantastic. But if Devon is able to perform and safely perform, I think I would love to see that. It's an opportunity to get a little bit of nostalgia, but I also think they could do enough in the ring and protect him enough to really make it work. So we'll have to see how that happens. Another guy not coming back to the ring, but who would love to, The Undertaker, doing an interview this past week. He was talking to Chris Van Vliet on the Insight podcast, and he said, in my mind and my heart, there's nothing more that I want to do than to get in the ring and perform. It was my body that just said, no, you're done, dude. We got everything out of this we can get. It's time for you to move aside and let these guys come up. I would have been a wreck if, in talking about being at the crowdless Thunderdome when he retired, he said, I would have been a wreck if there had been people there. All that kayfabing I did and the protecting of the character would have been destroyed in one promo. That would have been bawling. He would have been bawling. And I think that hearing those comments from him, it's clear he would love to still be performing. He just physically can't. It's a shame, but at the same time, we also don't want to see an Undertaker who's like a shell of himself competing. Somebody else we haven't seen competing lately, Roderick Strong, apparently, so his contract is still valid with WWE. He's asked for his release who knows how many times, several times. Every media outlet, Wrestling Inc., all of them have reported on it for quite a while now. Never been granted his release. All the other members of the Undisputed Era are no longer with the company, but they're also not using him at all in NXT. And you got to wonder how he's feeling, but apparently there's just no creative direction for him right now. And he's getting paid to sit on the sideline. And I don't know that somebody with his experience is looking to do that. I think he wants to maximize his potential in the ring for as long as he still has. And it's really a shame WWE's not pushing him further. And the other WWE tidbit for the week, the Bella Twins officially announced their departure from WWE, removed all references to WWE and the Bella name from their Twitter accounts and all their social media. They are now no longer the Bellas. They are now the Garcias. Nikki and Brie Garcia are what they're going to go by. They're going to keep their Nikki and Brie show instead of having it the Bellas podcast. And they are moving on to the next chapter of their lives. Congrats to them on a great career in WWE. I know that people right away jumped on they're going to go to AEW bandwagon, but they actually came out and shut that down pretty quick. That is apparently not the case. They have no interest in doing that, and unless it's a swerve to try to surprise us all. I did see one article by, I believe it was Wrestling Inc., that said that they would be perfect for the Baddies faction. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it definitely would be an interesting storyline. But right now, if you take them at their face value, they are not interested in that. Keeping with the ladies' conversation, Mickie James, I mentioned earlier, for me would be absolutely a perfect addition to the Hall of Fame. While she's also participating in an incredible pay-per-view, New Japan Pro Wrestling is putting on a show called Multiverse United, where they're going to be bringing in talent from all over the wrestling world. Obviously not from WWE, but many other locations. And at that show, Mickie James will defend the Knockouts World Championship against Deonna Purrazzo, Giselle Shaw, and Miyu Yashimita. And it should be lights out. These women can go, easily could be stars in WWE anytime they would get an opportunity. But it'll be great to see this incredible company show and see the ladies really throw it down. It speaks volumes since a couple years ago there was no women's wrestling at all in New Japan Pro Wrestling shows. And now you've got Mercedes Moné there as their women's champion. You've got this kind of crossover, and it's just great for women's wrestling. Good for them. On the AEW side of things, the big news coming out today was that their AEW contracts do not have no-compete clauses, with the exception, possibly, it's the widely accepted that CM Punk has a no-compete clause. Everybody else supposedly does not, which is interesting when you think about who some of those other people are, Kenny Omega and stuff like that, and how in theory, just in theory, they could show up on anybody else's television program whenever they'd like. It'd be interesting to see how that would play out if they decided to do that. I don't know that somebody like WWE would make that happen, but I would love to see a chance to try to make that happen. At some point, you would think in 2023, with kayfabe shattered the way it is, courtesy of shows like mine and other ones that talk about all the backstage stuff, you would think that WWE could get over themselves and make that happen, and AEW could get over themselves and their egos and make that happen, but somehow we haven't yet. Hopefully, we can all dream that maybe one of these days that happens. Championship Wrestling from Florida, historic promotion. The Grahams running that way back in the day, and then as they progressed, eventually WWE came out with a version of Florida Championship Wrestling. But Championship Wrestling from Florida is going to be revived. Kevin Sullivan, the former Taskmaster, Gangrel from WWE, and Bill Alfonso, the former referee/manager for Rob Van Dam and Sabu, are bringing it back. They're going to be spearheading this endeavor to try to bring a new show down to the Florida area. Coastal Championship Wrestling is essentially the governing entity that will be taking over the Championship Wrestling from Florida program. This is the program that originally they had people like Gordon Soley and Dusty Rhodes and all them on the show, and now they're going to try to reestablish the territory and give people another option, another viewing option. So they're hoping to have a set of television tapings in May, which doesn't seem like it's all that far away for them to be putting together a show so quickly, but kudos to them. I hope they find a way to really do something down there that's pretty special. And before we wrap the show, just want to throw a special shout out to one of my personal favorite wrestlers of all time, Arn Anderson. Our condolences go out to the Arn Anderson and his son Brock and his wife. The tragic loss of his son at 37 years old this week. Details not released, but out of respect for one of the most incredible in-ring performers in the history of the business, no parent should go through this, and it's terrible. I remember when Ric Flair lost his son Reed. It was incredibly emotional to hear the stories, and even when you watch the Ric Flair documentary this past December, you could just see the pain that Flair felt. And now knowing that Arn Anderson is dealing with much the same feeling and sensation, it's just tragic and horrible, and something you don't wish on anybody. And we just want to send from the Pro Wrestling Podcast our well wishes and our prayers and thoughts to Arn Anderson and the whole family. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next episode. We run down the latest wrestling news and rumors. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing any sound or music we use in our shows. Today's podcast sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com, clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. If you're looking for your next career move, you're considering college, university life, or you just need some formal training for your next career decision, go to our sister website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Dr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. Till next time, take care, have a great night, and if you get an opportunity, check out that video online, Worldwide Wrestling Alliance, Slim Whiskey versus Dr. Fro from the Norristown Throwdown. What a great time, March 10th, 2023. My debut. We'll have to see if there's a return match in my future. Possibly. They have a show June 3rd. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Take care, everybody. Have a great night, and I'll see you in our next episode.